Hey, what's going on, guys? T-Rec87 here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about Ashes of Creation. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So, as some of you may know, Ashes of Creation launched today in a alpha phase, like Alpha 1 is what they're calling it. It's given some people access to the game, some content creators, or if you were an early Kickstarter backer, or if you bought the like $500 pre-order pack for the game, which all of this is going towards like funding the development of the game. It's very much a crowdsourced funded game. So people are at access to that today, and I was watching Asmongold play it, and I just wanted to give my thoughts and reactions to it. Just a couple different things. So first off, I know it's an alpha, so I know there's a lot of glitches and bugs, and there's a lot of that in there. I'll kick some video up on here, that way you guys can kind of watch what I was watching. And the very first thing I want to talk about, I guess, is the node system. It seems extremely interesting. For those of you who don't know, I definitely recommend checking out Asmongold's podcast he does with his buddy called Allcraft. It's just like a talk show they do. They had one of the, I think it was like the game's director on, and he explains it really well. But basically, the long and the short of it is that the game is going to have different nodes. And what that essentially means is the more activity you do in a given area, the more you will level up that specific node, cause other surrounding nodes maybe to not be able to be leveled up so much. So depending on how kind of the crowd ends up playing the game will kind of shape the surrounding area. Towns and villages and stuff like that will pop up in different places. And I think there's gonna be like different quests depending on like where you are, whether you're like a node in like a mining area, you know, like near the mountains, or, you know, there's probably a million different examples I could think of. Seemed really interesting. Didn't see a whole lot of it in the gameplay today. Just saw that there were some villages already popped up. But the cool thing about that is that I think this is a very unique take on the MMO genre, and what it enables is that every server can have a different experience. Every player can have a different experience. Like a player that starts on day one is going to have a very different experience from a player that starts a year from that, like a year after the server's been launched. And so I think it's a really interesting idea. And it seems pretty cool in practice. I know there's not like a whole lot in the alpha. I suggest you go watch one of the streamers that are, you know, able to stream it. Not a ton of content there yet, but again, this is an alpha, just a really technical test of the game, just to see that systems are working, or how they're breaking. Not so much giving people an early peek at the game. The combat seemed pretty cool. Definitely seemed like a hybrid between like an action MMO, or like you could do like tab targeting, or you could switch it to like the action MMO style. So it kind of seemed like whatever you were comfortable with, there was a mode for you. Kind of seemed a little bit like Guild Wars to me, almost in a way. The way the gameplay was playing when I was watching Asmon. There definitely was some glitches and bugs in the combat, but again, this is an alpha, to be expected. You know, a lot of weird stuff's going to happen when you get that many people playing on a server, especially when this game is still, I think, in pretty early development. With that being said, though, the combat did look pretty fun. It's pretty cool. There's different skill trees. I don't know what the actual level cap will be in the game once the game actually launches, but the more you play, you get like different skill sets, and there's the holy trinity of the classes, you know, like the tank, the healer, and the damage dealer. It looked pretty interesting. Asmon had a couple different skills while he was playing, like a charge forward ability. He had chosen the tank class, and a different one that I think was just like a damage ability. Seemed pretty cool, seemed pretty satisfying. One other thing I wanted to talk about that I actually didn't record any footage of, and I feel pretty stupid for doing so, is the mount system. There were a bunch of mounts for sale from a vendor in the game, and I don't know if they just had a bunch there just for trying to just to let people see them and try them out. I imagine in the final game, when you're in the beginning area, you're not going to be able to get like a flaming immortal phoenix mount or anything like that. It's probably going to be mostly like horses and things like that. The mounts looked phenomenal, and that was one of the biggest things I'll say in this game that caught my eye. I do love mounts, but there was a lot of attention to detail in these mounts. There were water mounts that move faster in water. There were land mounts that move faster on land. One thing Asmon saw is that when you walk sideways with a horse, it didn't just do like a sideways shuffle. It actually was kind of like cross stepping, which I thought was like a huge attention to detail thing. And there were a lot of really unique mount designs. I highly recommend you go check it out for yourself. So one of the other things that happened while he was streaming is he ended up becoming a citizen of a village and got elected mayor. I mean, makes most sense. He's a super popular streamer. Everybody knows who he is. So they elected him mayor. He had the ability to set the tax rate in his town, which he set to 100% for a minute. Tried to change it back. I think it still got stuck at 100% tax. So he was paying like basically double for everything, like all the items in the village. But that aside, that seemed pretty cool. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but it seems like that tax money is going to go towards like upgrades for your village to open up like new services and buildings and make your village bigger and eventually turn into like a city. It seemed really, really cool. And there was like player housing. I'm not sure if the housing was bugged or if he just couldn't figure out how to buy a house, because somebody had given him like a boatload of money somehow, but he couldn't buy a house. And so I don't know if it's just maybe not in the game yet. There was like I said, there was a lot of generally buggy stuff. Like one of the devs was messaging him on screen while he was playing, and he was saying, like generally if you do stuff, like stay off your mount if you're interacting with stuff, because that's buggy. And like some of the doors were buggy. He definitely had a couple like soft locks during the game where the game kind of would like lock up for a hot minute, and then it like froze his computer, and but eventually came back. So again, that's not to detract from the game at all. Like I said, this is an alpha, like an actual alpha, and it's gonna be this way. And one of the last things I saw before I hopped off the stream here, and I'm probably going to continue watching later. Maybe I'll make another video once I get my thoughts more in order. This is more just a hot reaction just to what I've seen so far. Maybe I'll like sit down and actually write this out. Was they went and they raided a castle, because I guess apparently if you go raid a castle that's guarded by NPCs, once you kill everything, you guys can like take over the castle. Now, what they ended up finding out was they went in this castle, they raided it, this giant monster came down, ended up actually killing Asmon and a bunch of other players, but they got it down and they took over the castle. But when the dev messaged him again on the screen and told him that wasn't the right castle, so they found out they were in the wrong castle. That's about where I hopped off. But what I did notice is that when they did that, because I think that was actually a dungeon, it upgraded the node they were in, the area, to like a crossroad. And so I don't know if that just like built a road in the area or what exactly, but it seemed like them taking over that little dungeon area did something to affect the game world, but I didn't get to see exactly what that was. Still very cool stuff. And that actually brings me to like one other final little thing I wanted to bring up, was dungeons. Think of the dungeons, I guess, more as caves, I guess, from like WoW, you could say. It was like an area that he went into. It was not an instance area. It was really cool because obviously Asmongold had a lot of people following him around, but they all went in this cave together and started killing stuff. And who knows, like the more you play, you probably find like caves with super cool loot, or there's quests. But I thought it was very cool. You could get like a little party together and just go straight in. I did notice that it seemed like the more people you had around in the area, the less experience you were receiving. But I also think that was a case of whatever your specific contribution is to killing said monster seems like what you get to take away experience wise. It's not like a flat experience dividend, because I noticed there were monsters where he was only getting like 1 hit in before it died, and then he'd only get like 7 experience, versus if he got like 3 or 4 hits in, he was getting like 28 or 36 experience. So it's still pretty cool. If you want to go tackle like a particularly hard area though that has a lot of monsters, things will get spread out throughout the group, but you can all just like gather up and go right straight in. That I think that's really awesome. Like no queuing for dungeons or anything like that. And I guess lastly, the thing I wanted to bring up would be something more that he was encountering at the start of the game. And I know he was in a little bit of a hurry to like run around and explore and do stuff, and I could totally tell he was excited. I noticed when he was talking to different NPCs, the questing system, it seemed like he was able to choose a little bit more of what he was wanting to do. There was an option where he was talking to one of the NPCs, and they asked him like, hey, what do you want to go do? Do you want to go like conquer dungeons and go kill monsters, or would you rather like gather supplies or whatever? And I think it updated his quest log accordingly. Did bring me to one curious thought about it though. Like say you're playing with one of your friends, or like say I'm playing with like, I don't know, my wife, and we both come up to this NPC at slightly different times, don't communicate what we're doing, and she says, like, say she says she wants to go do dungeons, and when I come up to him, I say I want to craft and gather, and it updated our quest log accordingly. I want to know if there is, or at some point will be, some sort of quest sharing system, because that would kind of be a bummer if you got sent to go undertake this quest, but you and your friends couldn't undertake the same quest because you didn't choose the same dialogue options. So I think that that's a really cool idea, that there's a little bit of choice involved there, but I do think that that could present some real frustrations for players in the future. So I want to know, I am curious about like what their plan is for that. It is a little bit worrisome to see. And that was like one of the biggest things that I thought when I was looking at the game and thinking as far as feedback goes that there could be. The rest of it seemed fairly straightforward. The UI probably needs a little tweaking. I think the map system needs a little work. I mean, the mini map, not the overworld map so much. I thought the overworld map was pretty cool. It was more like a topographical map of the area. The mini map, there was like no roads or anything, and maybe it just wasn't like Asmongold wasn't looking at enough, but it was a little confusing to me to just look at. So those are two things I'd really want to like look at in the future. But all in all, guys, I think this game looks phenomenal. I've heard about it here and there. A lot of people, when it got announced that it was going to be like a Kickstarter crowdfunded game, a lot of people were saying, like scam game, that the devs were going to take the money and run. But everything I can see here now looks like they've put a ton of time and effort and thought into this game, about making this brand new world. And I think if they can pull off what they're trying to pull off, what it looks to me like they're trying to pull off, that this game, if it catches on, could really be a huge mainstream MMO competitor to like WoW or Final Fantasy or ESO or Guild Wars or whatever, any of the top RuneScape, any of the top games, just with how unique of an idea it is, I think. So I guess time will tell a little bit if the devs are really able to take all these systems and put them in place together, like all the crafting and gathering and the node system and everything like that, and still tell a good story. I think that is really important. I think that is really a unique idea to have an open world present for your player to let them have their own experiences. But I do also think that it's really important to have a good story there, somewhere in there, like your quest can lead somewhere, and that would be really a cool thing too. Is if you start undertaking a quest from an NPC and it eventually leads you through this really cool story that ends with something really cool, like you fighting like a big dragon or something. Kind of just totally speculating here, but I think that there's a lot of potential, like unlimited potential right there, like what could happen in this world. And so maybe It doesn't need to have a story necessarily like Final Fantasy, where you're like the warrior of light and center of the universe, but having good story or stories to tell while you're in this world is going to be super important. So anyways, guys, that's kind of just like my just off the cuff thoughts and opinions. I'm sorry if that was a little rambly. It was like literally I watched a stream for like, I think like 2 or 3 hours, and I just hopped off just so I could record a video really quick about it. And like I said, maybe I'll sit down and actually write out my thoughts and do another video later, kind of just exploring this game a little bit more. Unfortunately, don't have alpha access. I don't have $500 to throw down on a starter pack, and I'm not a legitimate content creator by any means, so it is a little bit disappointing, and I'm hoping like later on, if they have a beta or like another alpha, maybe they'll open up access a little bit more, because like even if they open up access to people that just want to like pre-order the game, I'd throw money on it, like just as it stands right now. Like if they had a beta and it was like $60 to throw money down on this game, to me, from just the tiny slice I saw, I think it looks good. So let me know if you guys watched any of that today or have seen anything about it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on it. To me, this looks like a really cool MMO, and I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts, or I'd love to hear what everybody thinks about it. So that's all for today, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.